One of the challenges about working with children and young people is, how do we know whether we're being effective? How do we know if that children and youth ministry is actually having a real impact? We of course recognise, I think all of us, that it's going to be long term. We're looking for children and young people who grow to mature adults in Christ, who will live their lives for Christ, who delight in the love of Christ. But the risk is we tend to look for short-term wins as well. We want to see large number of kids in churches or particular meetings or particular events. And you can understand that. We need the encouragement, and in a sense other members of the church need that as well, and people who are supporting financially want to see obvious outcomes. And the risk is, if we only look long-term, we find ourselves, in a sense, being able to justify anything, even if it never appears to work. So there is a tension there. How do we see fruitfulness? What will be the ongoing evidence of fruitfulness? But longer term, what is it we are expecting to see? Are we expecting to see more and more children and young people, who may be adults by that stage, in church buildings? Or might we be looking at something very different? That the 95%, those who already are not in churches, part of that may not be that they don't believe in God, although that obviously is going to be a fairly major part. It may just be that church as an activity, or at least church as is currently understood as an activity, isn't their sort of thing. Temperamentally, that's not where they are. That if they want to worship and honour God, it may look rather different and be in a different place. Working with sports ministry locally, we've been asking questions about what would be a valid expression of church for sports people who come to Christ through sports ministry. The assumption tends to be we want to see them in our church buildings on a Sunday morning, but maybe, just maybe, it would look very different. And I don't just mean a couple of hymns, a prayer and a talk in the clubhouse before a football match on a Sunday morning. I'm talking about a completely different understanding of what church looks like, as non-church people for whom temperamentally church isn't their thing seek to respond to and delight in and worship God. We can't know for certain what that's like, but what we probably do know is there are an awful lot of things we're used to that we may have to lay down, and that is difficult. It's always difficult to lay down familiar things and familiar places where we're comfortable. But if we are to accommodate those who currently don't know Jesus, and those who currently have no real desire to be part of a church gathering as is currently understood, we may be looking at something very different indeed.